thirsty to be given, but I'll never end up drinking if I'm left here. I just need a raft to cross the divide that's shaping me, from these barren sands to those foreign lands of self-honesty. But my reason's growing fickle just to wait here. Stranded on an island, the sun's going out on me. Over the horizon and hope now is dying as darkness falls. Start moving, but I'll never end up leaving if I can. I just need to work on my own and stop wasting time across the sea into those foreign lands I never will go. mercy to be given, but I'll never end up drinking if I'm left here. I just need a raft to cross the divide that's shaping me, from these barren sands to those foreign lands of self-honesty.
All right, so we addressed the philosophical problems with Ben Shapiro's debunked transgender ideology video. And now, as the empirical side of things, we'll discuss Ben Shapiro's empirical claims. And as usual, I'm joined with Ask Yourself to be the check. What's up, Isaac? How you doing?
I'm chilling. I'm good.
All right. So without further ado, we'll just get straight to it. We'll play the video. We'll go through it in its entirety. And some of the points are already going to be addressed in Isaac's video. And so if that's the case, we'll just refer to Isaac's video. And we'll say, this has already been addressed. See Isaac's video. This is incorrect. See Isaac's video, etc. But for the empirical points, we'll go through the problems with what Ben is saying here. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna hop over to the video.
Yep. Let me know when it's ready.
Sorry, you guys can't see my beautiful face today. You probably don't want to. I mean, it's been COVID. I haven't had a haircut in like longer than any time should ever go. All right, we're on the video. Go for it, dude.
All right, let's do it.
My awesome new series, Debunked, if I do say so myself. Seriously, we are very proud of this show. Every episode, I dismantle and debunk a common leftist myth in 15 minutes or less. If you like what you see, head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use promo code DEBUNK for 20% off. Become a member today, because you can watch the entire first season right this instant. That is correct. You can binge the entire first season right now on the Daily Wire. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use promo code DEBUNKED for 20% off. Enjoy this sneak peek. Today on Debunked, we're going to discuss a very common question. Can a man be a woman?
Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex...
The answer, clearly, is yes.
Okay, so to be fair, she is being evasive. She is dodging the question here. An answer like "it depends" would have been acceptable. Here are the circumstances in which I would. Here are the circumstances in which I wouldn't. And then you can say like, "Hey, it's complex" or something like that. And here's, there's a lot of factors that go into it. None of this is relevant to debunk, like whether transgenderism is whether trans women are women or whether trans men are men or any of that. But yeah, I agree that she's evading the question.
As Levine even told a former Trump administration official. Just pause.
Also, it doesn't mean the answer is obviously yes. The answer could be no. She hasn't given an answer. But anyway.
That for a moment and think about how crazy that is. Now, in the past few years, you've heard a lot of statements that sound like we must not raise boys as boys and girls as girls because we just can't be sure that kids actually have the sex assigned to them at birth.
Well, the gender, well, not exactly the idea. The idea is that their gender may be different from their sex. That was assigned to them at birth, but yeah. Anyway.
You've heard that some people are men in women's bodies or women in men's bodies. You may even have heard that if you're a straight dude and you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, meaning a biological male, this makes you gay.
Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
So if you're a if you're a straight dude who does not want to have sex with a trans woman, therefore you are gay.
Well,
Not therefore
wait,
you're
I don't.
transphobic. Wait, I'm not.
Yeah.
The claim is that.
Wait, therefore you're
Yeah.
gay. No, sorry, I spoke too
Yeah.
soon. I haven't heard that, but I have heard things like what he's saying though, where it's like, yeah, you're transphobic if you don't want to have sex with trans people, or yeah, I think I
Yeah, but
have
that's-
heard
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like if there's, you know what, I can't remember an exact instance, but
I'll
I think there
play it
are
again if
ideas.
you want the claim, but yeah.
I think there are ideas like
Yeah.
that go around though, that like, yeah, if you don't want to fuck this trans person, like that's gay because they're a woman.
Okay, I've never heard that. If you've heard that,
I
fair
can't
enough,
point
but-
to an instance. The thing I can point to instances of hearing is the transphobic thing. I think I have heard people say that, but
Right, I
like-
can point. I do know instances of transphobia. I have heard some individuals say, well, if you don't want to have sex with this trans woman, that's like because she's a trans woman, you're transphobic. I've heard that. I've never heard anyone say, if you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, you are gay. I've never heard that.
well, I mean, let's keep things in perspective, right? Like we hear some crazy shit. We've got that one guy Carlos in the Discord who thinks that it's gay to watch porn because there's dicks in it, and that it's gay to take a piss because, oh no, it's not gay to take a piss because you're touching your dick for non-sexual reasons, but beating off is gay.
Right. Yeah. All right, but
yeah,
all right.
but
I
even if-
definitely don't think this is a pervasive view.
Yeah, and even I mean, I was about to say exactly, like it's gonna be like really nutty, like crazy far left people are gonna say stuff like
Yeah.
that.
This is insane patent nonsense. Males and females reproduce with one another in the human species. We've known this for quite a while. The simple reality is that the human species is sexually dimorphic. Sex is binary.
Whew. No, it isn't, Ben. This has been debated extensively. There's any standard definition of sex that you come up with that is in the literature will not result in it being binary. As binary is standardly defined.
We come in two brands, male and female. Typically, those who have the XY chromosomes are male. Those who have XX chromosomes are female. Males and females.
Okay, so even if you're defining it as those who have XX chromosome are male, those who have XY chromosome are female, that's still not going to be binary. There are individuals who have both. You know, there are individuals who are mosaic, who have mosaicism. Mosaicism is some of their cells have XX, some of their cells have XY. So there are individuals who are going to be both male and female on that definition. So if there's more than 3 outcomes, variable can't be binary. So your variable can be XX, XY, XX, and XY. Well, that's 3 different outcomes. So that can't be a binary variable.
Males differ. They differ in size and shape, and musculature, brain function. As neuroscientist Steven Pinker says, differences between the sexes are part of the human condition.
Well, I mean, the differences between sexes are part of a much broader condition than human condition, sure.
There are certainly people who have anomalous genetic conditions, like Klinefelter syndrome, in which a person has 2 X chromosomes
Also, is
and
he
a
being
Y chromosome.
unfair? Is he being unfair to Pinker there? Because I don't know what Pinker's view is, but nothing about that quote has any entailment about binarity, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think Steven Pinker has said sex is binary.
Yeah, so I don't know if Ben is using it to suggest that's his view, but or just to in some other way bolster what he's saying. But just to be clear about Pinker's view, we'd have to look at what that is. That quote doesn't entail that he has a binary view.
Yeah.
And in whom breast development looks female while male genitalia are present. Overall, disorders of sexual development affect 1 in every 5,000 births. Now, the presence of abnormal development does not mean that sex is a spectrum. To suggest otherwise, it would be the same thing as saying that because 1 child every few thousand is born with 3 toes, this means that the number of toes in the human being is a spectrum.
Well, this will depend on what you're considering a spectrum to be. The term spectrum in science has evolved over time to be more inclusive, but it certainly does mean that the outcomes, if your question is as a variable, how many toes can a human end up having, that outcome is not going to be a binary variable, because it's not going to be a univariate variable either. It's not going to just be one outcome. It's not going to be two outcomes. It's going to be more than two different options. You can have one toe, two toes, three toes. So if your claim is that all humans, which what it means to be a binary variable, it means that for all of the outcomes, there's only two different possible options. Now, if that was the case for humans, it would just mean that for all humans, you only have two different possible outcomes for how many toes you have. You either have this many toes or that many toes. Now, if that was the case, then sure, but it's not the case. And yeah, there are multiple outcomes for how many toes a human can have. If what you're saying is all humans only have this many toes or that many toes, there's only two outcomes, then that's a false claim. Just like binary is. Binary for sex would be a false claim.
Or that a person with three toes might actually be a sloth human, a three-toed
I don't know what sloth has to do with anything, but
sloth human.
It just means, look, if someone has three toes or one toe or four toes or 10 toes, it just means that there's multiple different options for what the outcome could be. It's not binary because what it means to be binary is that there's only two different possible options for an outcome. I mean, it's so trivially the case. It's so trivially not binary. I don't know why people fight this so hard. But yeah.
All reproduction is rooted in the presence of sexual dimorphism. To
There's just irrelevant.
pretend otherwise is biologically nonsensical. That's why, to end a conversation on transgenderism, just ask for a simple, non-self-referential definition of the term.
All right, so this is addressed in
The
Isaac's
terms
video.
man and woman. When I say non-self-referential, I mean you can't say, I feel like a woman, therefore I am a woman. For advocates of biology, the answer for what is woman or what is man is simple. You can look at chromosomes, SRY genes, reproductive systems, verifiable answers to the question. For advocates of the position that some biological men are women, or vice versa, there is no standard that can be applied. A man can become a woman or a woman a man at any time without any stable definition of man or woman whatsoever.
So this is all addressed in Isaac's video. If you want to head over to his channel, everything he said there is just completely wrong.
So according to our pseudo-medical activists, gender identity is completely separate from sex. The separation between gender and sex relies on a simple fallacy.
It's not going to be completely separate, but okay, there's going to be some relation.
That gender is entirely socially constructed and thus separate from biology.
Also addressed in
Gender
Isaac's
in
video.
this iteration would be all the various feminine qualities that adhere to womanhood, or the masculine qualities that adhere to being a male. According to these folks, gender and sex are completely different. Right? All of those gendered notions of femininity, they're completely separate from being a biological female. This Cartesian notion that you can be a woman in a man's body, a soul in the machine, because your gender is separate from your sex, is utterly unsupportable at any level. Everyone understands there are some attributes that are generally considered more masculine. Chopping wood, being dumb,
I'm whizzing with the door open, and I love it.
and some that are considered more feminine, being caring, being nice, right? These are distinctions that do appear in virtually all cultures. Some of that is undoubtedly biologically oriented, and some is undoubtedly social construction. But it is simply ridiculous to suggest that if a boy is effeminate, he's actually a girl, or that if a girl is masculine, she might actually be a boy.
Yeah, that's not what they're not. Well, they're not saying they're going to be a boy in virtue of that, or necessarily in virtue of that. But yeah, there could be for other reasons. Yeah.
But this is what gender theorists argue. The origins of the gender identity movement lie with a professor of medical psychology at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s. His name was John Money. After twin boys were born, and after a botched circumcision destroyed one boy's penis, that boy was raised as a girl. By the time that boy was a teenager, the boy felt extraordinary discomfort because he was biologically male, and his parents told him the truth. Both twins ended up killing themselves in their mid-30s. That didn't stop John Money from founding the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. His theory was children could identify.
Okay, so he's bringing an anecdote where John Money took two twins. One twin had botched circumcision. He performed certain gender reassignment surgeries, or convinced the family to do so. And he's attributing the suicide to be as a result of that. So I don't know what the relevance of this is, but there's a couple of important facts that Ben is leaving out. So one important thing is that the twin that had the surgery didn't have the features that we would look at in a trans person and encourage them to have surgery. This twin didn't have this like overarching view that they were in a body that they want to be the gender that's different than their sex assigned at birth. This twin did not have the view that they were transgender. This twin did not have any of those features. This was done. The driving factor for this procedure was he had a botched circumcision, which resulted in the individual not having a penis. But that doesn't mean that the individual is transgender. It doesn't mean that they have this gender dysphoria that'll be alleviated with gender reassignment surgery. So yeah, I agree. Performing gender reassignment surgery on an individual like that could lead them to suicide. But that doesn't follow that performing gender reassignment surgery on individuals that really do have gender dysphoria are going to increase the risk of suicide. And the other thing that he's leaving out is that this Money actually sexually abused these twins. That could also repeatedly sexually abuse the twins. That could also lead to an increased risk of their suicide.
I had never heard that part. What the fuck?
Yeah, what he did was he encouraged them to sort of act out sexual acts with each other. So he had one play like a top role, one play a bottom role. And the one playing the bottom role, presumably being the one they were reassigning to be female. And he had them perform these acts out in front of him. Occasionally he took photographs and stuff of he inspected their
What an amazing anecdote to use. Like, just great.
Yeah, he Ben leaves all of this out, by the way. He leaves all of the sexual abuse out. Like, yeah.
Nothing like non-standard or like not what people are talking about when they talk about sex reassignment surgery being beneficial in this anecdote. Yeah. No, not at all. This is exactly what everyone's talking about, surely. Taking kids and making them perform like sex acts on each other and reassigning sex when you don't have the preconditions that the medical community thinks should be there. That's exactly what people are talking about. It's very fair criticism, not cherry-picked or like inaccurate or anything at all.
So Ben fails to cherry pick an anecdote. He doesn't even get to the level of cherry picking. But yeah.
As members of the X.
How is it not cherry picking? Here's what do you mean?
He doesn't. Cherry picking correctly would be like accurately representing a cherry picked case. So in other words, he takes a point of data accurately represented, but the data is cherry picked. Right.
Oh, so you mean that, like if
like
so if there's certain conditions for like when sex assignment surgery is, like advisable, and it's in those conditions that people are saying What do you
What
wanna
I
cut
would
me off?
mean, no, so yeah. And so look, in conditions where sex reassignment surgery would be advisable, there's going to be a spectrum of outcomes. Like, so some, like,
Right.
there's going to be like a small percentage that are going to have an unfavorable outcome and a large percentage of people that are going to have a favorable outcome. And so if he like
Right.
successfully cherry picking would be just saying, okay, well, look at these cases where there was an unfavorable outcome.
Right. Yeah. So in the cases that we actually are doing sex assignment surgery where we think we should, and you still get like a bad outcome, it would be like with like vaccine trials or something, like cherry picking an instance where someone actually was given the vaccine and had like a bad outcome, versus like, I don't know, cherry picking something like they weren't even given the vaccine. They're injected with like cyanide or something.
Yeah, something that we're not exactly.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Medical surgery was the proper solution. That inside, these kids were members of the opposite sex in reality, and that surgery would merely make their bodies align with their identity. Money claims that, quote, the gender identity gate is open at birth for a normal child, no less than for one born with unfinished sex organs, and would stay that way for at least a year.
Well, I mean, gender identity for a child, they don't have. I mean, if what he means is that it's by open, it just means they don't have one. Well, that's just going to be trivially true, because someone doesn't have a gender identity the moment they're born, right? They're gonna like when do like there's some variability where so there's variability where children can even like identify gender or have certain gender developmental milestones. Like I think it's between 2 or 3 years where they're able to label faces as male or female, 2 to 4 years where they begin to understand gender differences, use gender pronouns such as him or her, and can identify with their own gender. 4 to 6 years, their view of gender becomes more constant. So if they don't have an identity at 1 year.
Yeah, but don't you think that's being too charitable though? Like, because you're interpreting open as meaning just they don't currently have a gender identity. I'm thinking open there, given that it's a quote from this insane like child sex guy or whatever. I mean, I'm taking it that open means something like you could foist whichever during this period of time you could, foist whatever role you see fit on them with no negative consequences.
Oh, if that's what he's saying, then that, I don't know what he's saying, but if that's what he's saying, then I would disagree with that.
Well, it's this guy who.
But we don't advocate with that. Yeah.
I mean, presumably, if it's this guy who tried to like give people these like gender roles or whatever, presumably by open he means just like open to be crafted into whatever you want, like something like that.
I don't know if he means crafted into whatever you want, but if it certainly could with the crazy stuff he's done. But sure.
Well, even if we aren't sure about the interpretation, if that is the interpretation, we don't have a reason to think that's true. Maybe we even have reason to think that's not true. I don't know the data. But if it just means open as in they don't currently have an identity, then yeah, that'll be true.
You could have a full biological boy with finished sex organs, and his gender identity was still open. Brains and bodies were considered in direct opposition, completely separate from one another. Radical feminists like Judith Butler began arguing that all gender was socially constructed, and that therefore all inequalities in outcome between men and women could be laid at the feet of an evil, sexist society.
Okay, I've never heard, if someone can get me this quote where Judith Butler actually says this, that all gender inequalities can be laid at the feet of an evil, sexist society or something like that, or attributing all inequalities between men and women as a result of sexism, like every inequality, like if someone can get me a quote like that, I'd appreciate it. I haven't been able to find any Judith Butler quote that says anything of the sort. But if she does claim that, I'd like to know.
If gender is a meaningless social construct created by society, why does it matter more than sex, which is actual real biology? And why is gender real than biology itself? Why would anyone need to change his or her body in order to align with gender, a social construction, when gender and sex are completely separate in the first place? Gender dysphoria, which is what we're talking about here, is a serious and tragic disorder. It is also extremely rare. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5th edition, Those who had received a diagnosis of gender identity disorder or transsexualism and were seeking hormone treatment and or surgery represented just 0.005 to 0.014% for males and 0.002 to 0.003% for females.
Okay, so real quick, here's the full quote in context. Okay, quote is for natal adult males, prevalence ranges from 0.005% to 0.014%, and for natal females from 0.002% to 0.003%. Since all adults seeking hormone treatment and surgical reassignment attend specialty clinics, these rates are likely modest underestimates. Okay, that's the quote in context. The quote in context from the DSM-5 that Ben is citing says that that's a modest underestimate. We have, obviously, as data gets better and as people are more comfortable reporting their being trans, these numbers are going to go up. And there's data on this. So if you go to the Discord, we have publications from, yeah, sure.
All right. I am in the wrong Discord. 1 second. Okay, what do we want here?
So go to the Ben Shapiro section.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Go to the first image you see, where you see this graph by population transgender and then served by survey year.
Yep, got that open.
Proportion transgender by survey year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see, so this is proportion, so this is not percentages. So if you want, just multiply by 100 to get the percentage. So that's true. Like this top end of what he's citing is true for like, because you got to remember the time. Like the DSM-5 was published in 2013. So their data was prior to 2013 that they're using to give those numbers. So their data kind of fits in with like, it like just touches the top end. Sorry, its top end just touches the bottom end of the 2007 data, where it's like 0.15%. But now those numbers are going to be higher, and the reason that probably they're going to be higher, or at least one plausible reason, is because it's less stigmatized, and people are going to be more comfortable. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
To play devil's advocate, just to see how you respond to this, people on the other side are going to want to say, well, this is because the liberal transgender ideology or whatever it's like making people trans, or at least making people think they're trans, or making doctors like overdiagnose transgenderism or something like that. It's gonna be some version of that.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, like, well, regardless of the reason, yeah. So, the point here is that, yeah. So first of all, I'll just say that no, that's not what's being done. If they want to make a claim like that, they would have to really support that claim. Like, I can support my explanation, but by showing that at least it's something that happens. In other words, I can provide data showing that, well, over time, acceptance of transgenderism has increased. People's attitudes towards transgenderism have improved. I can substantiate that, right? But I don't think they would be able to substantiate a claim like, well, doctors are taking over time, they're just taking all these people and they're forcing them to be trans, or they're just convincing people to be trans when they're not in this like substantial degree. Like they would have to actually at least show that what they're saying has some as an explanation is actually something that's occurring. But so I'm offering like an explanation that I can actually say that, okay, well, this is why that may explain X, and I can actually show that Y is a thing that's happening in the world, right? Now they can say that, well, I'm offering Z that explains X, but I don't think they can even show that Z is something that happens in the world.
Yeah, where Z is either doctors like, you know, overdiagnosing or people getting brainwashed by the liberal ideology or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the symmetry breaker is I can show that the explanation I'm offering is a thing that is happening in the world. Now, that may still not be the right explanation, but at least my explanation, I can show that that's happening in the world. I don't think they can even show their explanation is actually something that's happening in the world.
And regardless of what the explanation might be, you were making this point in response to Ben quoting the DSM and the numbers they gave. So none of what you said there is going to hinge on what accounts for it, right?
Yeah. Regardless of the reason, the numbers are higher than what Ben is saying. And he has left off the part of the DSM that he's actually citing that they say that it is an underestimate. These figures are an underestimate. It literally says that. Or that they're likely to be modest underestimates.
You know, there is something always a little fishy. And I mean, like, Ben's a big, you know, there's a whole bunch of like production stuff behind him. Maybe he's not digging up his own quotations and stuff. So, you know, I'm not going to necessarily saddle in with this, but there is always something a little fishy to me when the thing that's left out isn't something that shows up like way elsewhere in the document, but like right after. Remember that Gregor quote?
Yeah.
I forget what it was, but it
was
like literally
about the oil.
like
Yeah.
it's like the next word like undermined the whole thing, and he just left it out. Yeah, so that's a little suspect for sure. It's because you get it. It's more understandable when it's like, yeah, there's something like way elsewhere in here that you might not have found that undermines it, but it's like more understandable than when the thing that undermines it is like right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back to
Those
okay.
Yeah, we're going back to the
are now rising dramatically.
We have that big announcement from an Oscar-nominated actor.
Yeah, so he does say the stats are rising dramatically. That's true. He doesn't say that his own source says that the original stats were likely to be modest underestimates.
Announcing he is transgender.
It's also funny.
Elliot
I don't know.
Page.
I just noticed, like, I don't think anything really hinges on this, but they were very careful to select only news footage that misgenders. What's her name now? Ellen Page? I don't if that's the wrong name. Sorry.
Yeah.
I might have misnamed her because I don't follow Hollywood actresses or whatever. Yeah. But it is funny that they selected specifically only footage that misgenders her.
Right.
Came out publicly with a post about his identity.
And in that post, now liked nearly 2.5 million times. The more I hold myself close and fully embrace who I am, the more I dream, the more my heart grows, and the more I thrive. And guys, that's what we love to see.
Yes, he is going to help so many. Janae, thank you so much.
People suffering from gender dysphoria, which, in its non-politicized definition, means the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite.
Okay. So this was never a standard definition of gender dysphoria. You will never, so I'll repeat that. You will not find this definition as any standard definition of gender dysphoria. Where I think Ben got this definition was from a proprietary definition of gender identity.
Oh, yo, wait. Sorry. Did I make a huge error? Sorry. I didn't know which way this person... See, I don't know this fucking Hollywood shit. Did I do it backwards? Is this a girl who became a guy? If so, then I take
I actually don't know the details. Yeah,
okay,
I don't know the
sorry.
details either.
I might have said something that makes no fucking sense there. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
My bad.
But to the point of the to the video, so this definition he's offering. So he's defining gender dysphoria as the persistent belief that you're a member of the opposite sex. He got that from I believe he got this from Dr. Dixon Susan, who did not use that definition to define gender dysphoria. She referred to it as gender identity disorder. And that wasn't even the standard definition of gender identity disorder. So if you scroll all the way down to the Ben Shapiro section, where it says Ben Shapiro got his definition here. Yeah.
Ben Shapiro got his definition here. What you talking about? There's a lot of shit.
Oh, no. You see the link? There's like one PDF.
Ben Shapiro defines gender dysphoria. The term was removed.
Just scroll all the way down.
Yeah, I'm at the very bottom.
Scroll
oh, right.
down.
Okay, yep.
Yeah,
Sorry, my bad. I got you. Okay. Try to open this shit up. And I guess we're going to go back to this page.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're there.
Okay. So go to the third page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then go to the paragraph that starts a rare disorder. It's on the right-hand column side. You see where the paragraph starts a rare disorder?
One second. First page, second page, third page. Yeah, rare disorder right here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a rare disorder of this process that presents with cross-gender behaviors is gender identity disorder. This is a persistent belief that one really is of the opposite sex, not for an afternoon dress up, but always. So, a couple things here. So first of all, this is not ever meant to be or was ever taken to be a standard definition of gender dysphoria. It wasn't even meant to be or taken to be a standard definition of gender identity disorder. This was just Dr. Susan Dixon at the time giving an account of what she took it to be, to explain the idea. That wasn't the standard definition. This is actually a proprietary definition of even gender identity disorder. So two errors. So the claim is, in its non-politicized form, the definition of gender dysphoria is the belief that you're you're a member of the opposite sex. So that's not true. That's not the standard. That's not the non-politicized like standard definition, if that's what Ben is trying to claim. So error number one would be that wasn't a definition of gender dysphoria. That was a definition offered for gender identity disorder. And the second thing is, even for gender identity disorder, that wasn't a standard definition. So if we go back to the Discord, the standard definition of that time was from the DSM-4. Remember the DSM, it's the DSM-5 now, but prior to that, there was the DSM-4.
Mm-hmm.
There was a thing called gender identity disorder. That's removed, by the way, in the DSM-5. That term isn't used anymore. It's been replaced with gender dysphoria. But prior to that, they had this term gender identity disorder. And the definition was, so from page 439 of the DSM-4, I'll just quote it: gender identity disorder diagnostic features. There are, for one thing, there's actually two things I want to quote. I want to quote from page 493 of the DSM-4. Gender identity disorders are characterized by a strong, persistent cross-gender identification accompanied by persistent discomfort with one's assigned sex. All right. And then on page 536 to 537 of the DSM-4, it says there are two components of gender.
I'm not seeing this in here. I see the definition you're about to read from 493, but where's the other shit?
It's actually not in the section. I'm gonna update it. But it is in the DSM-4. Yeah, on 493. Yeah. If anyone looks at DSM-4 and 490, yeah.
I was just gonna get it on screen for people, but if we don't have it, that's fine.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to look it up, it's page 493 of the DSM-4. And the quote is, gender identity disorders are characterized by a strong and persistent cross-gender identification accompanied by persistent discomfort with one's assigned sex. And then there were more specific criteria outlined, page 536 to 537 of the DSM-4. Gender identity disorder diagnostic features. There are two components of gender identity disorder, both of which must be present to make the diagnosis. There must be evidence of a strong and persistent cross-gender identification, which is the desire to be or the insistence that one is, of the other sex. Notice how there's a disjunction, which is the desire to be or the insistence that one is of the other sex. So it's not the persistent belief that one is of the other sex. What it is there's evidence of a strong and persistent cross-gender identification, which is either the insistence that one is the other sex or the desire to be the other sex. Okay, so that's what Ben is saying is not the standard definition. And then the cross-gender identification must not merely be a desire of perceived cultural advantages to being the other sex. There must also be evidence of persistent discomfort about one's assigned sex, or a sense of inappropriateness in the gender role of that sex. Okay, and there's other criteria as well, but the point is that nowhere in the DSM-4 was what Ben Shapiro is talking about as being the quote-unquote non-politicized definition. And by the way, this isn't to endorse the DSM-4 in any way. It's like I said, it's been replaced by the DSM-5, and this term gender identity disorder doesn't even exist anymore. It's been replaced with gender dysphoria. I'm just saying that, I'm just invoking it to make the point that even in that time frame, what Ben is describing wasn't the standard definition even of gender identity disorder, let alone gender dysphoria. So this is his own definition. Yeah, and I've looked this up. I've like put in quotes gender dysphoria, the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex. The only thing that's come up is like it tracks back to, for me, is back to Ben Shapiro or Daily Wire. This is just something he made up, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Have a tragically high suicidal ideation and depression rate. That suicidal ideation rate remains tragically high after surgical and hormonal treatment.
Okay, so this is gonna depend on what Ben is considering tragically high after surgical and hormonal treatment. I'll also point out that surgical treatments have and even hormonal treatments to an extent have advanced over time. So it's important to use contemporary research if you're looking at that. But the point here is that if you look at the latest data for trans individuals who have undergone hormone and surgical therapy, their suicide rates are not that high, especially for those getting all desired surgeries. And we'll go into that data. So more to the point, let's get to what Ben has claimed in other videos, which is that hormone and surgical therapies don't reduce the risk of suicide. And we'll go through, so that's what I really do want to go through. I want to go through Ben Shapiro's cited studies and what the issues are with them.
And you're talking about claims he's made elsewhere also, or?
Yeah. So he's made claims elsewhere also that the suicide rate doesn't actually decrease after surgical intervention. And so there's not, it's not something that we should be, it's not the appropriate treatment for transgender individuals because it doesn't decrease the risk of suicide. So I will bring up two studies that Ben Shapiro has referenced.
You want me to go to Discord
and what
here?
the issue is. Yeah, let's go to so the first study, you can pull this one up. That's where it says studies Ben Shapiro cites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a cohort study in Sweden.
Long-term
like
follow-up
Ben
of
Shapiro.
Transsexual persons.
Yeah. So what they did was they looked at transgender individuals who had undergone sex reassignment therapy, and they found that they had a higher rate of suicide compared to the normal population. Now, the key point is that the control group here were not transgender individuals who desired surgery and didn't get it. for some reason. The point here is that the control group was the general population. And so even if it's the case that transgender individuals after surgery have a higher rate of suicide than the general population, that's compatible with the view that that surgery reduces the risk of suicide in transgender individuals.
Right.
It's also compatible with the view that in today's contemporary era, where surgical techniques have advanced, that the suicide rates for transgender individuals are not that tragically high after getting all hormone or all after getting all transition therapies desired. Because the data, remember this cohort that Ben Shapiro cites, I mean, the origins of the cohort were from like the 1990s. The end of that study period was the 31st of December 2003. So this study is looking at the outcomes of, so 2 points here. So to crystallize point number one, the control group of Ben Shapiro's study he's not comparing transgender individuals who desire surgery but didn't get it compared to transgender individuals who desire surgery but did get it, and their outcome in suicide risk. That's not what this study does. This study is just looking at transgender individuals who desired surgery and got surgery compared to, and their suicide risk compared to the general population, aka cisgender individuals. So what can we infer from that? Well, we can infer that for that time span, they had a higher risk of suicide compared to cisgender individuals. Yes, so what? So that doesn't show, so that point alone, that doesn't show that that these therapies don't reduce the risk of suicide. And point number two is, this is a really old cohort. And the relevance of mentioning the fact that it's old is not to commit the fallacy of chronological snobbery. I'm not saying it's a bad study because it's old. I'm saying because it's old, the surgical techniques are not going to be as good at reassigning the sex, performing the task that the surgery is meant to do. Right? Mm-hmm. Is that clear, Isaac?
I think so. So yeah, you're just saying you don't want the general population to be the control group, because that's not telling you if the surgery decreases likelihood among trans people who want the surgery of committing suicide. That's just going to tell you if the rate of suicide is higher than the general population. So it's like all you'd be able to say in virtue of this is that trans people commit suicide more than the general population. You wouldn't be able to say anything about whether their suicidality is like decreased by surgery in cases where the surgery is desired. That's point one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the other one, you're just saying that this is some old shit, and it's not bad because it's old. Obviously, we've reamed people out for using that reasoning all the time, but there's actually reason to suspect that we could see different outcomes now because the technology that does the sex reassignment has improved significantly since this, where the cohort ended in 2003. So that's like the tail end of it.
Yeah. 1973, yeah, discharge diagnoses. They collected discharge diagnoses from a registry that went from 1973 to the 31st of December 2003.
Yeah, so there's reason to suspect that the outcomes would be different now, and even if they weren't, it wouldn't establish the point that he wants to establish, which is that the surgery doesn't do anything to decrease likelihood of suicide among people who want the surgery. And then additionally, isn't there actually new data that shows that it does?
Yeah, when we'll get to that. But first I want to go through all of Ben's like garbage.
Okay.
So this is other data that Ben has cited from the Williams Institute.
This next study here?
Yeah.
Okay, let me crack that open. Suicide attempts among transgender and gender non-conforming adults. Findings of the National Transgender Discrimination Survey. All right. See, the annoying little thing here is I didn't set this up right, so it's a little off screen. It's kind of annoying. Sorry for the positioning, guys. My bad. I fixed it.
All right, I want you to go.
Offside.
Okay, cool. I want you to go to let's see, what was it? Was it table 5?
What page am I looking for here?
Oh, it's you're looking for page 8. It's labeled page 8 at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. So you see the table 5. You see where it says transition-related healthcare, and then lifetime suicide attempts by responsive and transition-related healthcare.
I'm just trying to center this. Yeah, lifetime suicide attempts by gender-related character. Oh, wait, no. Lifetime suicide attempts by responses about transition-related healthcare. What does that even mean? Lifetime suicide attempts, right? By responses. Oh, like responses and like like people responding to.
No, not they're responding by what they reported having.
Oh, by response about transition-related healthcare.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The response is either they did not want it, they wanted it someday, or they had the care.
Yeah, I see that there.
Yeah. So if you look at hormone treatment, right, or any these any of the surgeries. So we can just start with hormone treatment. You notice that compared to those who want it someday but didn't have it, there's a 40% lifetime suicide. But if you have had it, there's a 45% rate of suicide. See that?
Yeah, I see 40% for. So I'm looking at hormone treatment. Want it someday. 40% have they've attempted suicide. 45% for have had it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you can conclude. Now what the spurious conclusion here is that, well, hormone treatment doesn't decrease the risk of suicide. In fact, if anything, it may increase. But notice how this is lifetime suicide attempts, right? These aren't suicide attempts prior compared to after the therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because this could even be accounted for by something like the people who've had it were the people who like most wanted it and therefore were most like dysphoric prior to getting it or something, and most likely to try to kill themselves.
You see the same trend. You see the same trend with counseling. Look at counseling.
Right.
Did not want it. 29% wanted someday. 39% have had counseling. 44. Are we going to conclude that counseling increases the risk of suicide?
Yeah. So you need to know about. You need to know, like, for people who want it and don't get it versus people who want it and do get it, and you want to look at like after it's been done, not before it's been done. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So you don't want to look at lifetime suicide attempts. You want to look at suicide attempts after the therapy.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So as far as Ben Shapiro goes, like the problems are going to come down to those two problems for the most part. It's either going to be that ridiculous Sweden cohort where they don't have a proper control and that they are using data from old surgical techniques, or it's going to be not understanding what you're even supposed to look at, which is the suicide risk after the therapy.
Right. Yeah. Lifetime suicide risk is not going to give you the answer you want there.
Yeah. So what do we want to look at? Okay. So studies that we should look at. So they're going to have the following characteristics. So
do you want any of these open, or you just want us over in the Discord?
We can go in the Discord. That's fine.
All right.
We'll have them open eventually, but yeah.
Okay.
So studies that A, actually have a control group. B, the control group is comprised of trans people who did not complete.
It's just such a basic thing to like have to say, like actually have a control group. Good, sounds like a good idea. Probably worthwhile.
Yeah, it's no. I mean, here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of robust data in a lot of research docs that you may see. There's a lot in meta-analyses. There's going to be a lot of robust data on trans individuals' suicide rates or metrics assessing depression or whatnot prior to a transition therapy and after a transition therapy. There's surprisingly not as much data, although there is good data on trans individuals compared to appropriate controls. So the longitudinal studies that don't have controls, which are robust, answers the following question. It answers the question of where trans people are compared to where they were before. So that question is answered. What it doesn't answer is the where would they have otherwise been question. That's the point of a control group, is to try to answer the question of what would have happened otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. Because one could always stipulate or speculate that, even if your suicide risk does go down, maybe if you didn't have the therapy, it could have gone down more, right? Mm-hmm. So you could grant that the suicide risk decreased, but without a control group, how do you know that it wouldn't have decreased otherwise or decreased even more otherwise?
Right.
And the answer is you really don't know that. I mean, there are ways you can do it. You can look at the general trend of suicide and how it and if it tapers down, if we would expect it to taper down. But then there's all sorts of confounders that you're not adjusting for. You'll have to look at things from different studies, and it gets a whole mess. What you really want, if you want it clean, you're going to want a control group in the same study. So you're going to want an actual control group. And what's an appropriate control group? Well, the appropriate control group is going to be a control group comprised of trans people who they did not complete a transitional therapy in question, and B, they actually wanted the transitional therapy in question. Why is this important? Because
well,
some
obvious,
trans people
yeah.
don't. Yeah, it should be. No, see, here's the thing. It should be so obvious, but in the Lauren Southern debate with Hunter Avalon, this wasn't obvious to her. Now, I think it wasn't obvious to her because she didn't actually read her study again. And if she did, she just missed it. But it's obvious because some trans people are happy with where they are currently in their current stage of therapy. Their dysphoria has been alleviated, and if you're gonna, it has been alleviated, and if you're gonna include them in the control group, if that's what you're compared to, well, you wouldn't expect surgery to improve their risk of suicide if they don't even want surgery.
We're not interested in the question of does surgery decrease suicide rate among trans people who both want and don't want surgery. We want to know, does it actually decrease suicide rate for the people who actually want it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's claiming that we wouldn't really. I don't think anyone on the trans side is expecting that the surgery is going to have any impact on the suicide rate for people who don't care about getting the surgery.
Right.
It might even expect it to have a negative,
to have a worse outcome
because it's they're happy and then you're fucking
because they don't want it. It's not to say hey, do you want surgery? No, I actually don't want it. Okay, well,
let's give it to you anyways.
Let's give it to you.
Looks like the surgery makes people
your risk of suicide.
Right, that's funny. I think we might have some anti-trans fucking dummy over here who wants to hop on after this.
I'm sure. Yeah, after this, I'm yeah, absolutely. Bring on any of the idiots. We're happy to go through with them.
Yeah, what
but
up,
yeah,
Richard?
in the
I see
Hunter Avalon
gains there. Sorry.
Yeah. But
he's making an account. Okay, we're gonna have a debate for you here, Avi. This is gonna be
all right.
Comical.
Awesome.
All right, you guys in the chat, I'm not watching this carefully. It's your job to get that guy over to the Discord, okay?
All right, so here's the important thing. So it should be so obvious, but it isn't to a lot of people. This is actually the study that Lauren Southern cited in the Hunter Avalon debate was actually just that. They looked at trans individuals who desired to have surgery and didn't get it, compared to trans individuals who who both did and did not desire. Some of them did and some of them did not desire to have the surgery and didn't get it, and looked at their suicide outcome. It's just ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, I hope that she puts out a correction on that. We should try to get her to do that. It's good you've been helping out some of these people, like Hunter and Mouthy, getting them kind of, well equipped for this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're in the Discord. You want to go back to the video, or you want to go through more of this?
Oh, and then just one other criteria, that the outcome measure, just as said before, the outcome measure of suicide should be over like something like the last year, not lifetime.
Right.
It's important because lifetime suicides are, exactly. That's going to include time prior to transition.
Right. And like it should be enough to just point out that time prior to transition. That's not what we're looking at, but you can also add in other little intuition pumps, like, about the people who wanted the surgery would presumably be the most dysphoric during that time. But
right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Back to the video.
Study. Back to Discord. We're going to go through 2 studies.
Oh, okay.
And then, So this is one study.
And is it cool to just open the screenshot here instead of the full study?
Yeah. You can just open the screenshot.
Yeah, that's better, because I fucking set the internet up a little off kilter.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So look at the. This is a study of 433 individuals from Ontario, Canada. And look at the bottom section where it says medical transition status.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks them down into quarters. So the quarters are as follows: have medically transitioned, in process, planning but have not begun, and not planning, unsure, does not apply.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at not planning, unsure, does not apply, for individuals that haven't gotten to the level where they actually want the procedure, they're not planning on it, they're unsure if they want it, they said it doesn't even apply, their suicide rate is actually only 3%.
I'm just going to play this for a sec so it doesn't time out on us. Sorry. Yeah, say again?
Yeah.
My bad.
So you see there's suicide, proportion attempting suicide in the past year, suicide attempts?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
3% for those who are unsure if they even want it, or not planning on getting it, or answer the question as it doesn't apply.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For individuals who have gotten the therapy that they wanted, they have medically transitioned, 1%.
Right.
See that?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it get high? It's high where they want the transition therapy, but it's not complete. So they're in process of transitioning, in process of medically transitioning.
Or haven't even started, but they want it.
Or or planning but have not even begun.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So their percent is going to be 18 and 27%.
Mm-hmm.
Proportion attempting suicide in the past year. So when you look at it, when you actually stratify it out that way, you do see a clear difference.
Sure.
A huge difference. That's one. The second study I'll bring to your attention was one of the largest studies done.
Just gonna open the screenshot again for this one here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple things about this study and why I think it's very important. Aside from meeting all of my criteria that I listed above, they did another thing. The exposure group included respondents who endorsed undergoing one or more types of gender-affirming surgery at least 2 years prior to submitting the survey responses, right? So they made sure that they were at least 2 years out of the surgery. That was the minimum follow-up time. The minimum time between them getting the surgery and when they're assessing the outcome, right? They're making sure there was a 2-year delta between that.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to look at it. So that's a way of making sure that the time frame you're capturing is not gonna be the peri-surgical procedure, peri-surgical time frame. It's not going to be before the surgery. It's going to be after the surgery. And what they found was, if you go to that screenshot, for those who received some of their desired surgeries, both their suicidal ideation and attempt decreased. Their adjusted odds ratio was 0.72 and 0.70. And those who received all desired surgeries,
I
I
don't know odds ratio shit. Is that just like one is it's like
similar to it's similar.
Is it like standardized to 1? So this is like if
yes,
we see 70. So would that translate into like what, like 70% of the people?
It's similar. Think of it similar to a relative risk. Instead of probability, it's odds.
Okay, so your odds.
Yes, it is standardized to 1.
Right. So your odds at some point are we just standardize that arbitrarily. Whatever point we're looking at, that's the one. And
the reference is
right.
The reference is individuals who received none of their desired surgeries.
Okay, and then
so that's important.
Odds ratio going down. That's going to mean your odds of in, I guess we have ideation and attempting suicide here, are down from 1 to 72 and 70 respectively. And I can already see the trend here. Received all, it's even lower. It's like 40 and 44 in both cases.
Yeah. And I'll just add a little, like, in terms of like Ben's other claim that it remains like extremely high after the surgery. Like, here were the like unadjusted. These are even like the absolute numbers. Like, I just added a graphic. If you look at past year suicide attempt, percent with reported outcome for like history of, history of gender-affirming surgery, no history of gender-affirming surgery. The past year,
you lost me here. We talking about this image right here, figure 2 comparison, mental health outcomes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be
okay. I got you.
Right. So this, I mean, this is gonna be. I'm like eyeballing it now, but this is gonna be less than 5%, if not 5%. History of gender-affirming surgery, compared to what looks like around approximately 10%, or like 9 point something percent. So, I mean, when Ben says it's like after surgery, like the suicide rate remains extremely high. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, maybe he's considering that extremely high. Sure. I mean, I guess relative to like less than 1%. Sure. Yeah, sure. But here's like, let's be more act precise. Like, it's reduced by more than half. So, yeah. I mean.
Yep. Comparison of mental health outcomes among respondents who did and did not undergo gender-affirming surgery. And this is looking at presumably people who want it, right?
Yeah. This is from the same study. It's people who want it and got it versus people who want it and did not get it.
Right. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then you look at like suicidal ideation, and it's like the darker color is people who don't have any history of surgery. The lighter is those who do. Everyone here is someone who wants it. And yeah, you see the bar is lower. It's about half the size for suicide ideation and attempts, the gray bar, than the darker one. Yeah, right, okay. Also, I'm just going to say to this person, it does not, this guy's trying to run out the clock, I think. He talked a bunch of shit and he's probably going to run now. It does not take this long to make a Discord account. Takes, a few seconds, maybe a minute. So, have fun running out the time there, little coward. Okay, yep.
All right, we'll continue the video then.
Okay.
Yep.
Longitudinal studies that are good just do not exist on the efficacy of these measures, and the mental health problems associated.
So this depends on what Ben is going to consider good, right? So, longitudinal studies. So yeah, this was a cross-sectional study, but if you think that you need to have longitudinal studies in order to make these inferences, there is actually, by the way, longitudinal data looking at like depression metrics that show the same thing. That also exists, and that is so there is longitudinal data for this. The reason this was a really well done study is, despite being cross-sectional, they were able to, based on the, they were able to stratify out time points at which their data was being generated from, and they were able to make inferences. Now, if you think cross-sectional, you can't make any inferences for cross-sectional data. That's not true. You would have to there'd be a lot of data you're going to dismiss if that's the position you want to take. And it's not, the line's always like blurred between what's, what is cross-sectional and what's going to turn into like retrospective. But you're looking at they weren't just looking at, they called it a cross-sectional study, but they were looking at time points before and time points current. They were stratifying out by time. So in a sense, there's a retrospective component there. But to the point, if by longitudinal we just mean it has to be a prospective cohort study, we have to recruit people at a given time and then follow up with them, that's fine. But Ben Shapiro's own study wasn't actually that then. If what he means by longitudinal is a prospective cohort study, Ben Shapiro's own study wouldn't qualify as a prospective cohort study because they just got the data from a registry. They didn't actually recruit individuals, do an assessment, and then follow them out. If what Ben Shapiro means by a longitudinal study is that in the study they assessed outcomes at different time points for individuals, that's fine, but then this study would qualify as a longitudinal study. And then we just have to know what he means by a good study. And that he hasn't described. Does that make sense?
I'm not 100% sure if I followed all of that, Avi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might need to try again to get that through my brain.
Okay. So what Ben says, he says there's no good longitudinal study on the efficacy of the surgeries for suicide rates. Mm-hmm. Now, let's ignore for the moment what Ben means by good. What does he mean by longitudinal? If what he means by longitudinal is that it's a prospective cohort study in which participants were recruited, right, and then followed over time for an outcome. They were recruited to participate in the study, and then they were followed for an outcome. Then Ben's own study that he cites, that he says was that he uses to make his points, that doesn't even meet the bar that he's setting.
Okay, so yeah, you're saying that if he means a given thing by longitudinal, we can talk about exactly what that thing is, then his own studies aren't going to meet the bar that he's setting.
Yeah. And if he means something else, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Well, and he said good longitudinal, so maybe there's other things he thinks makes for a good study.
Right, right. Well, right. That's why I'm saying let's ignore what he means by good for now. We'll deal with that, but let's just see what he means by longitudinal. Mm-hmm. If what he means by longitudinal is so if what he means by longitudinal is just a prospective cohort study where participants aren't recruited and enrolled, right? That's just not going to be, even his own study doesn't meet that bar. Okay. Mm-hmm. If he means that they just got the data from a registry, right? Mm-hmm. Then, and they separate it out by different time points, then then the studies that we're citing do meet that bar for longitudinal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then in terms of what he means by good, that he just doesn't actually go into. He doesn't explain what he means by good.
He's welcome to spell out the standard according to which, there's no good data, and see see what other kinds of facts are no longer going to be able to establish given the standard that he sets. Presumably you think that there is, I'm guessing your view is there is good data. If you try to say this isn't good, you're going to set a standard that's going to make us not able to make a ton of claims you think are pretty fucking obvious we can make at this point.
Exactly.
In all sorts of other contexts.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Problems associated with gender dysphoria remain extremely damaging, even in particularly accepting societies. But suffering from a mental disorder does not change your underlying sex, any more than believing that you are Napoleon Bonaparte makes you Napoleon Bonaparte.
It's all addressed.
Transgender activists make an objective claim about reality based on subjective internal feelings. That's unsustainable. What's more, transgender activists demand that you abandon reason, biology, privacy, even the ability to raise your kids in concert with reality in favor of a delusional quasi-religious worldview in which gender and sex are completely segregated and a boy can be a girl and a girl a boy. Now, none of this means that anybody suffering from gender dysphoria ought to be mistreated. Anybody with any sort of disorder ought to be treated with nothing but sympathy and care. But this does mean that a society that seeks to propagandize to children that they can switch their gender is both lying to kids and doing them psychological harm in the process. Unfortunately, that's exactly what our society is now teaching kids in public schools. Anti-biological nonsense, including the lie that you might just be a different gender with different pronouns. And it's not just that. With the new Equality Act,
the motion is adopted.
The Biden administration and the Democratic Party are seeking to promote the idea that any institution that doesn't mimic these lies has to be destroyed. Religious institutions are not exempted from federal regulations that demand that men who identify as women be treated as women. And this is true in sports, in restrooms. Ironically,
the Equality Act mentioned sports once, but it's my understanding of it is that they don't have like any clauses that require religious organizations or institutions to, or even non-religious ones to have any standard in terms of what would constitute allowing transgender individuals into certain sports teams. They mentioned it
feminists who sought to women from men have now seen female spaces completely destroyed because they can't define female and male properly. Most shockingly, we're now a society that demands that parents hand over their kids to...
I'm not going to get into an empirical discussion about transgender in sports today. Just for
the tender
we can talk about that
mercies of political actors masquerading as medical specialists. If you have a 12-year-old at school with a headache, the school nurse cannot prescribe to them Tylenol without calling you first. But we now have officials in states and in the federal government suggesting that if a 12-year-old says that she is a boy, the school should be able to prescribe puberty blockers without calling a parent.
I don't know where he's getting this from, but that's not how schools operate. Schools don't. Schools are not. I don't know where. Like, this is just Narnia to me. Yeah, I don't know.
That is a sick society. In the end, a man claiming to be a woman is making an unsustainable claim. He can't even know what it is like to be a woman because he is not one. A man.
Okay. I mean, for this, the philosophy part should be addressed. We already, like, this has been addressed millions of times. The focus of this video is
surgeries and hormone treatment does not become a woman, nor does a man who simply declares himself a woman. All of this is insane propaganda that is being propagated for political purposes. So, no, a man cannot become a woman or a woman a man.
All right, so in conclusion, yeah, this is just a complete piece of trash. Yeah, really, really bad. Okay, is that person here or not? Because if he's not going to get here like now, I'm gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's running away. I mean, there's one guy in the verification. I doubt that's him. We'll check the. We can take a few questions, I guess, if you want.
All right, real quick, because I do have to wrap. I do got to wrap it up, so we can take a few questions real quick. But if this guy's not like,
I'm pretty sure he's running away. Well, I mean, we'll check. We'll see if the guy in verification's him, but I doubt it.
Okay.
Yo, Baba Prince, are you the guy from the stream? Unmute yourself quick. Sec. I think I need to just give him the verified role. Baba Prince, you the guy from the stream? Unmute yourself and talk. I'll leave you in here for a minute to answer. Avi, you want to get some of these questions while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have your like super chat shit open? I don't know if there's any supers.
No,
I didn't even watch.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if there are any, but we can just take also just anything you tag with. So yeah, I mean, guys, tag off if you have anything. We'll answer a few, but then we're gonna dip out of here. Actually, I think that is the same avatar. Yeah, that is the same avatar. I think this is the guy. He's just, predictably with people who are saying shit this stupid, he's probably unable to operate Discord. So
okay, then I'm gonna do the rest of the conversation off cam. But let's just see if he's there and he's willing to debate.
Oh, he unmuted. You there, Baba Prince? We can't just do this forever. Okay, you speak up whenever you're good. We're only gonna stay here for a minute or two, though. Okay, you want to take a question or two, and then if he's not there by then, just call it?
Yeah, and we'll take a question or two. If he's not, then by that time, call.
Oh, there we go. Okay, stay in the Zoom call so we have you on voice, but go over to AY and I'll drag you to where he is because he's talking now. Okay?
All right, like 2 questions, and then we'll just.
No. I mean, he's here. The guy's ready to talk.
Oh, he's right here. Okay.
Yeah, come to AY server. Just go into general. I'll drag you to where he is, but stay on. Well, I was gonna try to get him to stay. Avi, leave your camera on so people can see you for the stream.
No. I have to do the rest of it off cam.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just switch to Discord, I guess.
All right. So I go to AY.
Yep. Yeah. Let's just close Zoom. I'll just use the Discord audio.
Okay.
Well, I guess you guys just have me for a moment here. Let's drag Avi in. Okay, let me make sure Discord audio is capturing. You there, Avi? Test, hello? Hello, Avi?
And these guys were calling me stupid.
Well, we'll just see about that in just a minute here, Baba.
Well, we'll just see about that here in a minute there, Baba.
I'm gonna have to server mute. We don't have to hear any insane stupidity. Alright, Avi's DMing me. Let's check that real quick. I'm not gonna open the DMs on stream, we'll do it on my phone. No perms, can't chat. Okay, just gotta fix that. I mean, you should actually be able to chat. You might just have to leave and rejoin. But yeah, you have perms in here. Avi, it's just your Discord, just leave and rejoin. Okay, there it goes. Try that again. All right, good to go? Well, my guy, you're gonna have to figure out your sound over there. You don't want to take longer than Baba Prince, right? That would be bad. If you need to, just close and reopen your Discord. Okay, let's look at the chat for a minute. See if people are saying anything of interest here. While Avi figures that out. I worship and pray for you as a god. First statement. All good? Test, 1, 2, 3. Avi, you gotta just close your Discord, turn it back on. Not getting your sound. The other guy can talk in here, so I'm sure you can. Let's see what he's saying here. Sorry for the dead stream time. I assume you guys probably want us to leave it running so we can get this debate. But I think the cost of that is going to be a dead moment or two here. I'll just throw it to intermission. We'll come back.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, all right, we got it working. Very short intermission. Okay, here, Avi, meet Yo Play.
All right. Boba Prince, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Okay, so what's the objection?
I don't know.
That seemed to be spurging pretty hard about some of the things I was saying. I don't really know what the problem is.
All right, so I'll ask a question. Is there anything in the video I said that you think is false?
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Okay, let's start with what's the first thing? What's the thing that you take issue with? What do you think is false?
Well, it's not really something I take issue with. I think I seem to say that men are men and women are women, and that seemed to bother people.
Okay, so real quick, what do you think I said that was false?
How about the feeding into the delusions of people? I don't know.
Okay, can I just have a proposition that you think is false? So, like, let's get the proposition on the table. What proposition did I affirm that you think is false?
I never.
Sorry, you're cutting out. What proposition did I say that you think is false? What proposition did I affirm that you think is false?
Are you hearing me right now, or am I cutting out for you?
You cut out
now. I'm hearing
bit,
you,
but you're for the most part loud and clear.
Okay. I'm using headphones, so let me know. I didn't say that I had a issue with a specific proposition. I mean, obviously, I believe men are men and women are women. So what is there?
Okay, so I just made a video. Okay, I just want to know if there is anything I said in the video that you think is false. I want to know if there's any proposition that I said in the video that you think was false.
Well, I largely agree with Shapiro, so.
Okay,
if you disagree with Shapiro, then obviously that's the starting point right there.
So let's just try. Okay, what did I say? Okay, what I want the answer to be. What I want the answer to be is here is what you said, and this is false. Okay, can you do that? Hello?
Oh, but it's okay to concede, eh? If there's nothing false, you can just say,
I'm not conceding.
So do you agree that everything he said is correct?
Do you disagree that men are men and women are women?
I just don't give me a question. Luke, dude, look. Here's my question. Can you answer it or not? I just made a video. I want to know if you think there's anything I said, there's any proposition that I said that is false.
Video or stream?
Yes or no?
Because I was in the stream.
The stream, sure. The stream that I just did. Do you think there's any proposition? Okay. Look.
Sure. I mean,
the stream.
The entire premise. The idea that you can be women. Sure. That's the whole thing.
Okay? No. We're looking for a proposition. We're looking for a proposition that I actually said.
We're talking about a lot of things, and I disagree.
We're asking for a proposition that I actually affirmed. We're not talking about propositions that I didn't affirm in the stream. Okay. So, what proposition in the stream did I affirm that you think is that you think I shouldn't have affirmed, or you think that is false specifically? You're cutting out.
Of mental illness.
You're still You're roboting. Is he roboting for you as well, Isaac, or just me?
Yeah, but it's only periodically. If you try again, we'll probably hear you. I think he said something about. I assume he said legitimacy of trans people.
Well, the legitimizing of mental illness.
Okay, so legitimizing of mental illness is not even two issues. One, that's a category error because that's legitimizing of mental illness is not even a proposition. Okay, so that's error number one, is a category error. Number two, it's not something I even said. So two errors. One, I didn't say it. Number two, it's a category error because I asked you for a proposition and what you offered me wasn't a proposition.
That's not a category error. What do you mean? I said that I disagreed with the general premise.
No. I'm going to mute myself. I'll stop.
I have to point out. I don't think I have to point out a specific.
So if I ask you I asked you for a proposition, and if what you offer me is not a proposition, that is a category error. You're placing what I'm asking for is something within the category of propositions, and what you're offering me is something that is not within the category of propositions. That's what forms the category.
Being a little hyperbolic, but Again,
So I'll ask the question again. Let's try for something that's not a category error. Okay. What? Now you're just roboting. What proposition did I affirm that's false in the video? Can you hear him, Isaac? Because I can't hear him.
He's roboting. Boba, can you switch onto LTE instead of using your local Wi-Fi or something? If that's what's doing this. Because your connection's a bit bad.
I'm not on any kind of local Wi-Fi.
Okay, your connection's just a little suboptimal. We can try our best to deal
Let me
with
try
it.
unplugging the mic.
You have a mic that you plug in? Oh, like headphones or something.
Yeah, I was using headphones. I'll try it on.
Oh, it's pretty hard to hear what you're saying. Do you want to continue with him or not, Avi?
If you can improve your connection, I don't think there's a point. We can schedule a debate if you'd like in the future. But I think it's clear that you're not providing any proposition that or at least you don't seem to be able to provide a proposition that you think is false that I affirmed in that stream.
I just said that I think the whole premise of transgenderism is false to me.
I couldn't even hear what you said there.
He says the premise of transgenderism is false to him, whatever that
all right, so the premise of transgenderism, I don't see how that's even a proposition. What is it? What do you mean by premise of transgenderism?
The idea that a person can change their biological sex.
Okay, that's not a proposition that I affirmed in the stream. So let's try again. So that's another category error. So I asked you for a category. The category I'm asking you for propositions that I affirmed in the stream.
Okay, we must have
propositions that I affirmed.
Are you going to keep talking over me?
I can't even hear you. I can't hear you. Okay, you're okay. Can you try to? Okay, what I want is a proposition. So something actually has to be a proposition. And 2, it's a proposition that I actually said in the stream. And 3, you think it's false.
I disagree with the notion that there's a difference between gender and biological sex.
Okay, so you think that so if I say by gender, I just mean characteristics, certain characteristics that are weighted, that may relate to sex but are different than sex. And by sex, I mean any of the various standard definitions of sex in the literature. We can go with the Gametic and tail definition. So
right.
By Gametic, so you think they're equivalent then?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think of this idea.
So you think? Okay, we can derive that that's a false. Yeah, we can just derive that that's false then, because we can derive a contradiction, because we can give an example where they would classify them differently. So if we go with the Gametic and tail definition of sex, one is a male if they produce small gametes. One is a female if they produce large gametes. And if we talk about a weighted classification of a weighted categorization system based on features, then one can produce either. One can have a weighted categorization system where one can produce small gametes or large gametes and can be classified as male or as man or woman on that gender definition, regardless of what gamete they produce. So clearly the definitions are different. That's just trivially the case because they're not the same. So if I'm defining gender in this way and I'm defining sex in this way, clearly the definitions that I'm working with are distinct. Do you disagree with that? Hello?
Yeah, I don't know why you're not able to hear me, but
now I can hear you. Do you disagree that the 2 definitions I just offered are distinct?
I don't disagree with that specific example, but you're using a situation in which there's overlap, and
okay, cool. So then
I feel like that's a stretch.
So then, if you agree with me that they're distinct, then I'm going to ask the original question: what proposition did I affirm that you think is false.
So you're saying that that example is the only definitions?
No, that's not a proposition. So that's not a proposition that I affirmed. So I'm going to ask you the question again. What proposition did I affirm that you think is false?
Again, everything.
Okay. Can you give me a specific proposition that I affirmed that you think is false? The word everything is not a proposition.
Do you think I remember every single word you said?
Do you remember one proposition?
I remember your arguments that are akin to the same old arguments that are generally
Do you
made
remember
in support
one
of
proposition?
transgenderism. You said
Do you
you were
remember
debunking Shapiro's video.
Do you remember one proposition that I said in the stream that you think is false? Do you remember a single one?
Goodness gracious, dude! I noticed that you're not actually engaging with my point.
Do you remember
you're just
a
focusing
single?
on whether
Do you
you're
remember
focusing
a
on
single
whether or not I remember
proposition?
exactly what you said. I'm
You-
agreeing with
you-
Shapiro's idea because your idea was supposed to be debunking Shapiro's vid.
Do you
and I don't
remember
feel
a
like you accurately
single
did.
proposition? Do you remember a single proposition that I said that's false? Let's just get an answer.
I just told you.
The answer is no? Is that the answer?
Specifically worded? No.
Do you remember something that may not be specifically worded, but may still actually track onto a proposition I
just
affirmed
told
that's
you,
false?
and you did. I just told you, and you
Is
kept
that it?
rerouting
Well,
it back.
no, no.
Yes, I did. I
you
told
told
you a
me
premise. I told you
just to be clear on how the flow of the conversation, because you don't seem to be tracking it. You said that that gender and sex are distinct, and then you agree with me based on how I'm using those terms that they're distinct. So now that we agree that they're distinct based on how
I
I'm
didn't say they
using
were distinct.
What did you say?
I said I didn't agree with the ideology that you're trying to merge this idea that gender and sex.
That's not.
Look,
go ahead.
Boba, why don't you do this, okay? Just say, I don't know that I can't actually point to anything you said in the video that's false. I just have a separate criticism of your views on trans people. Then you'll get out of the pickle of saying something's false in the video and not being able to point it out, okay? Why don't you do that?
Your stream was as a response to Ben Shapiro's video.
Are you saying the false proposition is that Ben was debunked in the video?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my whole point. What are you talking about?
Oh, so I take debunking to mean that Ben affirmed propositions that were not that were false, and debunking means that it was shown to be false. So I clearly have, because he affirmed things that were false, and I showed that they were false.
No, you didn't.
Oh, so do you think the proposition that gender dysphoria? Do you think the proposition that gender dysphoria is in its non-political definition is defined as the persistent belief that you are the sex that you're not? Do you think that? Do you affirm that proposition? Do you think that proposition is true?
If you play semantics and you believe that there's a difference between gender and sex, then you can, I'm explaining. No.
It's a yes or no. You say yes or no first, and then you can explain.
You can't even let me.
If you're rambling, I will. If you're rambling, I will. So
there's no rambling. I'm explaining to you.
Ben Shapiro affirmed a proposition that gender
there's no difference between gender and sex.
Nope, that's not the proposition that I'm talking about.
Right,
the proposition I'm talking about. The proposition. Okay, but it doesn't matter what proposition you're talking about, because
okay. So you asked me for what my proposition
because my
is,
debunk video.
Excuse when I explain it to
you,
and you offered it. You keep redirecting the conversation. You can't argue with what I'm saying. You redirect the conversation.
Real quick. The proposition you're trying to argue for is that the proposition you mentioned was that my video is that Ben Shapiro was debunked as false. Now, it would be true if I can show you that Ben Shapiro affirmed false propositions and I showed them to be false. Now, I'm giving you a false proposition that Ben Shapiro affirmed. The proposition that Ben Shapiro affirmed, with the proposition that Ben Shapiro affirmed, which is trivially false, is that the definition in its non-politicized form of gender dysphoria is the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex. Do you think that proposition is true?
Yes.
Okay. So that you think that's the standard definition in its non-politicized form. Can you provide me any example of that being the standard definition?
No. I know what the definition is on the books. We're arguing semantics.
But Ben Shapiro is saying that that's what the definition is in its non-politicized form.
He's saying that men are men and women are women, and you can't change that.
No, he's saying that
That's
the definition
basic
of
premise. You're arguing semantics.
I'll quote it to you if you like. He's saying that the definition in its non-politicized form is the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex. Do you think that's true? Do you think that's the standard definition if you stripped away the politicization in its non-politicized form? There was a standard definition that existed like that?
Yeah, if you strip away the politicization, I would say yes.
Okay, can you show me, and can you show me any example of that being the standard definition in any context other than Ben Shapiro?
Well, the only example you can give is changing definitions to support your argument. What do you mean?
No. The claim is that there was a usage of this term, that if you were to look at the definition of this term, you will find this definition. This is the definition you'll find.
I don't think that there's a misusage of terms. I just think that there's a changing of language.
Do you think the proposition I'm saying right now is true? That the definition in its non-politicized form of gender dysphoria is the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex? Do you think the proposition that is the definition that is used? That is the standardized definition.
I'm not sure about that specifically, but it doesn't really matter because the idea that somebody would want to mutilate their body is
well, that's different. Well, that's so now you're saying you're not sure if that.
But even if that doesn't matter.
But it doesn't. Well, here's why it does matter. I'll tell you why it does matter, because you said that that the proposition that Ben Shapiro has debunked was false. Now, if I can show you that Ben Shapiro affirmed that proposition and I showed it to be false, then I'm within my grounds to claim that Ben Shapiro was debunked, even if you don't care about what he was debunked about.
So if we
change said something that's false,
whatever we want them to mean.
That's tangential, because if you claim that something is a definition that was used and it turns out that's a proposition, not just a definition. There can be propositions about definitions.
But those propositions based on the definition, though.
Look, you can have a proposition about a definition that's true or false. Definitions, even if definitions,
rather than the actual idea.
I'm arguing a proposition about a definition. So you can have a proposition that this is the most commonly used definition, for example. Now that proposition could be true or false. It could be the case that this is the most commonly used one. It could be not the case. I'm not saying Ben claimed it's the most commonly used one, but the point is that there are propositions that can be true or false about a given definition. Now I'm saying Ben made a claim. He affirmed a proposition about a definition, and that proposition is false.
I think Ben's arguments are largely coming from the changing of definitions rather than arguing about the definitions. Does that make sense?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, no, even if it...
How does that not matter, though?
It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter because the proposition would still be false about the definition.
Okay, but if your whole argument is revolved around... I just think that's so weird that you keep focusing on the definition when that wasn't really the argument.
The reason, the reason I'm focusing on it is because you said that I didn't debunk him. And the clearest example of a debunking is when someone says something that's false and you show it to be false.
Oh, but you should just back the claim up again. Like you should just say, okay, actually, you did debunk him because you showed something he said is false. But I have a separate criticism. You could just say that to get out of Avi like cornholing you on.
I've been saying that since the beginning. That yes, I have a criticism.
No, you haven't.
But to be clear,
I said from the get-go that your ideology was flawed.
What he's doing is he's not letting you move away from this particular point about the
I'm not moving away. You asked me a multitude of different questions. Please don't talk
over me, Bubba.
You talk over me, but I can't talk over you.
I haven't fucking talked much at all, okay? I'm just saying something simple to help you out, okay? Avi's holding your feet to the fire about this exact claim you made about Ben Shapiro not being debunked. Avi's picking any claim he wants. He's chosen this one about the definition.
Dude, that was in the middle of the conversation.
Please don't cut me off, Boba. He's picking any point he wants that he thinks Ben was false about and that he showed. He's saying, look, here's where I showed he's false. That's a debunk. If you want to not get stuck in an argument about that point, then you can just say, okay, actually, I agree that you debunked that, but I have a different criticism.
I said from the very beginning, he keeps changing subjects based on what I say, and he keeps redirecting the conversation.
I think he's been
Yes, we were
extremely
talking about something.
linear.
I said from the get-go
Oh, but you're trying
what
to
my
get away
problem with
from
your
the point.
ideology was.
Look,
I said from the
look,
get-go what my criticism of your ideology was, and he kept redirecting the conversation.
Boba, do you agree?
And you guys have to redirect. You have to mute me. You have to talk over me.
Hello, do you agree that he debunked that specific point?
I don't care that he did. That wasn't my point.
But but your point was that
you just want somebody to agree with you. You just want to play this fucking power game.
Your point was that he didn't debunk Ben, and he's showing you that he did, right?
That wasn't my point. He directed the conversation to get me to that point. That wasn't originally what I said.
No, let's get rid of this. You can't talk to a person like this.
Okay, so you're gonna back out of the debate.
He's not tracking.
Okay, so you're
he's not tracking.
I say just for the fun of it. I think it's incredibly obvious. Sorry, 1 second, Boba. I think it's
you can't even argue your point.
Sorry, Boba, I'm talking. I think it's gonna be really fucking obvious to everyone that he didn't track that conversation or defend his view well. But do you want to just for the fuck of it?
It's gonna be obvious to your 5 followers.
Hello, sorry. But do you want to, Avi, just for the sake of it, let him pick any fucking claim he wants and try to show that there's a problem? Some claim you hold.
I told you from the get-go. Your chat wanted me to get into a conversation.
Well, that's a question for Avi. That wasn't a question for you. Do you want to do that, or do you want to just hang?
If he can provide another proposition that I affirm that he thinks is false, sure.
Okay.
My proposition was that
but he's letting you. Just to be clear, he's letting you weasel away from everything you've been saying. But if you want
weaseling away, I said from the get-go.
Hello. If you want to make a new point, he's now letting you do that. But just everybody note that
I said what my point was.
Just everybody note. Sorry, I'm talking. Just everybody note that we're letting him weasel away from his prior points. Okay, what's your new? Okay. What's your new point, Boba? Now that you're done weaseling.
I don't have a new point. My point is going to be the same. If you let me talk, my point is going to be exactly the same what I said from the very beginning of the conversation, which is that transgenderism is a mental illness, and you have not argued that point.
Do you have any other proposition that I said in the stream that you think is false?
I don't care what you said. I said transgenderism is a mental illness.
Okay, so to be clear, you don't have any other proposition that I affirmed.
Avi, what I'm thinking is it's super obvious he can't track. He's not going to be able to refer to stuff in the stream.
Can't track. I've been saying the same thing since the beginning.
Sorry, I can't get a sentence across without this guy cutting me off.
Oh my god, you keep interrupting me. And you're saying
I'm going to just mute you while I talk, then we'll unmute you. So, Avi, I think it's really obvious. He can't track the conversation. He's not going to point out anything from the stream. If he does, he's not going to be able to stick to it. It's a waste of time. But just for the fuck of it, you want to just engage him on any random thing he can pick out that you believe, regardless of whether it's from the stream?
Okay. Is there any, Boba, listen, the question now is, it's broadened. The question is there any proposition that I believe that you think is false?
Let me ask you a question, and this will determine.
That's not an answer to the question.
No. This will determine. I want to know how you feel about how we're handling I guess you can say the treatment of transgender people in the medical field, because I'm pretty sure you support that, right?
Some of it I would, some of it I wouldn't. It depends. There are improvements that can be made. There are shortcomings that can be, tidied up or fixed. But yeah, I just don't hear an answer to my question, which is, do you think there's any proposition that I believe that you think is false?
Oh, but do the mental illness one.
The what? Say that again?
You think it's a mental illness, right?
Yeah, I do.
Avi doesn't. Why not there?
Okay. Do you think that it's a mental illness because there's some sort of delusion or something?
Well, gender dysphoria is a mental illness.
And what in virtue of what is it a mental illness?
In virtue of what? In virtue of psychology. What do you mean?
What makes it a mental illness? Are you saying that there's
wanting to lop
Are you
off
saying
your own
that
body
there's
parts? Wanting to chop off your own body parts because you think you're the opposite gender?
I thought the claim was that trans people were delusional, not that gender dysphoria wasn't.
Well, trans people are gender dysphoric, aren't they?
No, not all of them.
Okay, well then you're just playing dress up otherwise.
Look,
I love this guy.
Do you think? Do you think that there's any proposition I believe that you think is false? I just want to know the answer. Like if the answer is no, that's fine. Then you can hang up. But
why? So we can keep redirecting the conversation?
No, so we can end the conversation if you have
asked
nothing.
Me the question
if you
so
don't think
I
that
keep
there's
giving
anything,
you examples, and you keep just
yeah,
you followed
no,
up by asking me again when I give you an example.
You've given me category errors, and you've given me propositions that I don't believe. All right, that's the majority of your answers.
What have
now,
I said that you don't believe?
One more time.
I don't want to misrepresent your arguments.
Okay, one more time. Is there a proposition that I believe that you think is false? Hello?
The basic concept of transgenderism not being a mental illness.
Transgenderism not being a mental illness. So transgenderism is not a mental illness. You think that's false?
Yes, I do think it's false.
In virtue of what is transgenderism a mental illness? In virtue of what?
I just said.
Dysphoria?
Yes.
That doesn't apply to all transgender individuals.
Then I don't really care because
you can be trans. But wait, you can be if you agree that you can be transgender without being dysphoric. Then I don't know how transgenderism entails a mental illness.
Well, you could still have. Well, first off, you could still have a mental illness. I mean, even if it's not gender dysphoria, it could be.
I'm asking if it entails.
Hey, Avi, just as a side question, do you take dysphoria to be a mental illness? Gender dysphoria?
That's what I would like.
Oh, gender dysphoria. Okay, sir. So just dysphoria, sure. Yeah, that's an illness in which there's a incongruence between the mental state and the physical state.
Because I think
so sure, I don't have an issue.
It's for people watching, because I know what you're doing. You're going in virtue of what is an illness, and you think he's going to make the delusion error and then not understand what a base plant on that and stuff. But I think people watching might have got the impression you don't think dysphoria is an illness. But yeah, surely you do.
No. Dysphoria I take to be an illness, but the point is that you can be transgender without dysphoria, and so if you can be transgender without dysphoria, then it wouldn't be the case that if dysphoria is that transgender, you haven't shown that transgenderism entails a delusion because you haven't shown that all individuals with transgenderism have dysphoria.
Well, if the basic premise of transgenderism or transsexualism is based around dysphoria, then yes, that's a mental illness. And if
some individuals aren't. I got
that. Some people identify as trans and don't have dysphoria. I got that. I don't understand. Do you
think that transgenderism entails a mental illness?
Yes, I mean, I think even if the person specifically doesn't.
So what? In virtue of what?
Has to be some kind of mental
illness.
You still think you're something other than what you are. You're born female or male.
So you think something is false? What's the false? Wait, are you saying just to be clear, are you saying they have a mental illness in virtue of believing a false proposition?
And believing that you're something that you're not? Yeah.
Okay, so what's the false proposition that all transgender individuals believe?
Well, I didn't say all because there's different people who clearly believe different things, but it all.
Okay, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. Like, if you want to say transgenderism entails a mental illness, then you're going to have to show something that's true of all transgender individuals. Or else you're going to be able to have
depression. Is depression not a major factor because of how your own?
Not all transgender and if you want to say transgenderism entails a mental illness, what that means is that all individuals who are transgender are going to have some sort of mental illness. But let me just ask you this: do you think there are individuals? There are individuals who are transgender that do not have a mental illness? Are there any individuals who are transgender that do not have a mental illness?
If you expand the definition and include things like cross-dressers, then sure.
I'm talking by transgender. I just mean someone whose gender is different from the sex they were assigned to birth.
I know. Which means.
So do you think?
There would still have to be some kind of
those?
Delusion.
Okay. So cool. So what delusion applies to all trans individuals?
I just said thinking that you're something that you're not and ignoring your own biological. I don't believe
what
this
is that?
idea that gender is different from
What
biological
do they
sex.
think? What do they think? What do they think that's false?
Believing that somehow there's some other entity that's separate from your biological sex.
Believing that there are things that are separate other than their biological sex. That's
An
a truth.
entity,
That's
like
a truth proposition.
separating gender from sex. I don't believe that.
They just have a definite. You think that when they say like I have, let's just say someone's transgender and they just haven't had definition of gender to be just certain characteristics, like I described to you, and sex being like the comedic entail definition. Like
so
I also
everybody has
described to
their
you.
own different definition.
No, I'm just asking what the false belief is. Like even if they have, I'm not saying everyone has, they may or may not, but look, if someone has those definitions of gender and sex and say I am this gender, and I'm not, and that's different than the sex I was assigned at birth, what's the false belief?
The false belief is exactly what you just said. If everybody has a different definition, then what is the point of trying to?
Wait, but that's if everyone has a different
definition,
that doesn't show a false. Wait, but that doesn't show a false belief. Like I can, if someone says that they have the characteristics, they have certain characteristics, and that's what they mean by gender. And if they have a certain sex, and what they mean is the comedic entail, the standard definition of sex, the comedic entail definition, then those beliefs that they have
characteristics doesn't mean that you're that thing. You understand what I'm saying? Just because a man wears a dress,
no, they're not saying
or he waves his hands when he talks.
Well, actually, by that thing, all they mean is that those characteristics, right? They're just having a term to describe that thing, those characteristics.
Right, but that's not a gender. You're still a man. You're still a woman. Just because you do things
wait. By gender, no, but by gender, that's what they mean. Like if someone says my definition of gender, what I mean by gender is having a certain set of characteristics, and they actually have those characteristics. What's the false belief?
I have the characteristics of a wolf.
If you really do have the characteristics of the wolf, and that's all you're claiming, no, you're not. But okay, so real quick, they're not saying you're not tracking here. So they're not saying when you say you're a wolf, what you mean is that you're actually a wolf in the sense of you're biologically a wolf. You have a wolf DNA, you have wolf fur. Yeah, that would be a false belief. But if when you say you're a wolf, all you mean is that you like to howl in your bedroom to make up for your pain. What if I said that? Is that you like? Excuse me. 1 second. 1 second. Please don't cut me off. If all you mean when you say I'm a wolf is that you say all I mean by that is that I like to howl in the bedroom to make up for a small penis size, then that's actually just a true claim. You wouldn't be having a delusion. Right?
Yes, I would be.
Well, let's just say that that's actually the case. That you really do howl.
I would be a weirdo. I wouldn't need some kind of gender-affirming. I would be a weirdo.
Wait, but being a weirdo doesn't mean you have a false belief. I'm asking you what the false belief is.
It doesn't make me
Wait, if it's true,
human being. What are you
wait, but if it's true, it's not a false. How is it a false belief if it's true?
How is it true?
Let's say
it's not
true.
What it is.
Okay, so let's just say that it is the case that you howl in the bedroom to make up for a small penis size, right? Let's just say that is the case.
Oh, well, I'm giving it.
All right, so let's just say that it is the case that you howl in the bedroom, right? Now, if that's what you mean by saying you're a wolf, right? If that's what you mean, then what's the false belief? The thing you're meaning is what it actually is the case. So what belief is false?
Nice name change, by the way. The falsity is that I'm still not a wolf. That doesn't mean that like there's somehow.
Wait, but by wolf,
I'm still a person. I'm the same as every other person.
Wait. So are you saying the belief is that you are a wolf, and by wolf you just mean biological wolf?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that there's nothing that makes me close to a wolf. I'm the same as just any other guy.
Wait, when you say the false belief is that you're a wolf, what does that mean by wolf? What do you mean? Do you mean that they actually are a biological wolf, a wolf that has fur and that has, and that is?
Well, just the idea of having characteristics of a wolf. It doesn't mean that you're that thing.
Okay, so but if when someone says they are a wolf, if by a wolf they just meant that they have these set of characteristics, and they actually did have those characteristics, the question is, how could there be a false belief in that? Because what they said just has a given meaning, and that given meaning accurately maps onto reality. So now you can make there are certain things you could say. You can say, well, hey, listen. Wait. No, wait. I don't see. Hold on.
If
Look,
I howled in my bedroom, I'd be
I'll help you out, Wolfman. You can be crazy and have true beliefs and not have any false beliefs. Those things are compatible. Look, I'll help you out here because you don't seem to be doing a good job here.
So transgender people with crazy false beliefs should be validated?
Hey, Wolfman. I'll tell you what. I'm going to throw you a bone, okay? I'll throw you a bone here. So what you could say to this person who says they're a wolf is you can say, okay, it's actually technically true with what you're saying, because when you say you're a wolf, what you really just mean is that you howl, and you don't actually mean that you're a biological wolf. However, that's a kind of definition that it's sort of a private definition that not a lot of people would share, right? You can say something like that, like, okay, so that's something you can say. You can say that, oh, well, this definition might be a private definition and it's not shared by a lot of people. But what you can't say, or you'd be wrong in saying it, is that there's a belief they have that's false. That this belief that they're affirming is false. You see how that wouldn't go through? Because all they
there has to be some kind of false belief within it. Even if I didn't think that I was exactly a wolf, they would have just the idea that I think that I have the idea that I have the characteristics of a wolf. The same way the idea that someone has the characteristics of the opposite sex.
Let's just say that they said. Let's just say they say by wolf I just mean having this one characteristic, which is that I howl, right? And it actually is true that they howl.
Then you're crazy.
Okay, well, you could be crazy, but while also not having false beliefs.
Okay, so trans people are crazy?
So what's the false belief? Wait, I'm not saying they're crazy.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying
that's
what
horrible.
You said. Okay, you're just trolling. All right, what you said is that they're crazy, and I'm just pointing out to you that even if it were true, and I don't think it's true, but even if it is true that they're crazy, it still wouldn't support your claim that what they're saying is false. So I just want to know.
If a man was raised by a single mother,
what's the false belief, Wolfman?
If a man is raised by a single mother and he waves his hands a lot, or talks with a lisp, but does something that's feminine characteristics, does that somehow means he's less of a man, or that he's somehow closer to a woman?
Okay, so if all they mean by man or woman, if all they mean by woman are those characteristics, then it would mean that. What they would say is that you can challenge the utility of a definition like that. Wait, but you're disagreeing with something that's true. It's trivially true. Like if all they mean is that those characteristics, then
it's still a man.
Trivially, okay, but not on that definition. It isn't.
Not on what definition? Biologically,
not on the definition that they just provided in that case. With respect to that definition, it's not.
Wait, do you mean like how I described it?
Yeah, the characteristics you just said. If someone says they're a woman and all they mean, wait 1 second, because you really have to understand this point. Look, if someone says they're a woman and all they mean are characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's the case that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, then what they're saying is technically true. It's not a false claim.
It may not be a false claim, but it doesn't change what he is.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Hold on.
He's a feminine man, nothing more.
Wait, because
he's a feminine man with the characteristics of a woman. That doesn't mean that there's something else.
It's relevant because you said that all transgender individuals have a false belief, right? Now, if you're saying, well, it may not be false.
Yeah. If you believe that there's a difference between your gender and your biological sex, I think that's false. When you're going against your own natural biology,
but if by gender they just mean characteristics X, Y, Z, and characteristics X, Y, Z are actually true of them, then what's the false belief?
So by your example, is it that people who are trans that don't have any desire to change their bodies, is that somehow Like what? Is that better than a trans person who does? I don't.
No, I don't know. I'm not saying anything of the sort. I just want to know. I'm just saying that if by man or woman they just mean characteristics X, Y, Z, and it actually is the case that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, then it's not clear that they have the false belief at all.
Okay, but the problem is it's not just stopping at the characteristics. It's going beyond that with the changing, the mutilating of the body and things like this.
Wait, but the reason, okay, but that's a separate. No,
it's not. It all goes together.
No, because you said no. You said that all transgender individuals have a false belief.
I never said all. You directed me to that point. I said
no. You clearly,
the idea of
transgenderism
is a false belief.
You said they all did. We can go. We can go back to the recording.
I said
and play
that
it back
the idea of transgenderism is a false belief, and you came to the conclusion.
Okay,
of saying, so yes, if you think I'm saying all, sure, then
I'll ask you again, and we can we can go back to the recording if you like. But I'll just ask you right now: do you think all transgender? Because it started off because I asked you, do you think all transgender individuals have a mental illness? Right, and then you said yes, and then you said because they have delusion.
Yeah, I still say that.
Right. Okay, so you think all transgender individuals have a delusion?
The idea that a person would be transgender, absolutely, yes.
Can you just answer? Okay. So
I am answering your question.
Do you think all transgender individuals have a false belief?
Yes, the transgenderism.
Okay, what's the false belief? So what's the false belief?
I just told you multitude of different things that I think is a false belief.
What's the false
The gender
belief?
and sex thing, the thinking that somehow having characteristics.
Wait, we already addressed.
We already addressed
the. Okay, we already addressed the gender and sex. Yeah, no, because we already addressed it and you backed off it. You said it may not.
No, I didn't. I never backed off.
Yeah, you said it may not be false. Okay, what's the false belief? Proposition. Give me the proposition.
I just told you.
What's the proposition?
My proposition? Transgenderism.
The proposition that they have.
That's
the proposition. The proposition they have that's false. The proposition that all transgender people believe that's false. That's false. What is it?
I just told you the main basis of
what is it? What's the proposition, Wolfman?
I just told you the biological sex and the gender are different things.
We're gonna try 3 times.
I just said it.
I want the proposition. What is it? Give it to me now. What's the proposition?
I just said the idea that somehow you think that you're something else because your characteristics go against your biological sex.
Okay, so wait. That they think they're something else. By something else, they just mean
it doesn't necessarily have to be because now I'm going off of what your inclusions too. That there's people who don't necessarily quote think.
Here's a question. If by something else they just mean characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, do they have a false belief when they say they're something else? Yes or no?
Yes.
You're just an idiot.
How am I an idiot? How is that an idiot? What is the difference between a transgender woman and a man?
What were you saying, Isaac?
Yeah, I was just going to say, additionally, like, trans people don't even need to... We're talking about a proper subset of trans people right now who even have beliefs about this stuff, right? Like, we don't even have to grant at the outset that trans people have these kind of beliefs. But even if you talk about the proper subset who do, it's still not going to...
Sure, many don't. Ones that actually want help.
Right. So just to be clear, for everyone listening, if transgender individuals say they're something else, and by something else they just mean that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, you would say that them saying they're something else is a false belief, that it's false what they just said.
I just told you,
that even
going
false.
Before that, even going before
Can you
that.
answer the question? Can you say if they say so again? So don't pivot. If
There's
they
not a
say
pivot. Every single example you can use.
Don't dodge.
Transgender, it's not dodging. I'm telling you.
Ask it again. So then
yes,
shut
all people. All people.
So no. I'm not asking about all people now. I'm saying you're not even paying attention.
I said all trans people.
The question is, no, I'm not even asking you about all trans people. So I'm just asking you if.
Well, you just did again.
If a trans individual says I'm something else, and by something else I just mean having characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's the case. It happens to be the case that they do have characteristics X, Y, Z. Would you say that that's a false belief? Yes or no?
I said earlier on that it doesn't.
Yes or no?
It doesn't stop there, though. That's
yes
the problem.
No.
Yes that doesn't stop there. I just
okay. So the answer is that a no? Is that a no?
I've already explained this. Again, you're making me talk in circles.
Is that a no? Yes or no?
Trans people are
Hello?
not trans because they're saying they have
Okay,
the
can you answer the
characteristics.
question? I
just answered the question.
Is that a false belief? Yes or no?
Trans people are not saying
Is
that they
that a
have the
false
characteristics of
belief?
the opposite
Yes
gender. They're
or
saying that
no?
they are.
Is that a false belief?
Dodging machine, man.
How am I dodging when I answered your? You're
asked
answering
you
me
a
the same
yes/no question like fucking 50
I answered the
times.
question. I just answered the question.
Why don't you try again? Is the answer
You talk
yes
over
or is
me
it no?
and you complain when I don't fucking answer your question.
Right now,
Is
you're
the
not
answer
answering
yes or no?
I answer your questions over and over, and you talk over.
Is the answer yes or no?
This is why I said you're dodging. You won't answer.
There's no dodging. I laid
not
out
answering.
specifically what I believe. You make me repeat myself.
You're still not answering.
Because you're trying to come up with an argument as to what I'm saying, because you have no argument.
Still not answering.
You have no argument.
Just answer.
You're going based off of my definition.
If we had a counter, we'd be like in the dozens. Like, just answer the
Having
question.
characteristics doesn't mean that you don't have a mental illness.
This isn't an answer. Just answer the question.
A man who has the characteristics of a woman is still a man.
It's a yes/no question. Is it a yes or is it a no?
Okay, so ask the question again.
Thank you.
All right, so the question is, if a transgender individual says they're something else, and by something else, they just mean that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and it happens to be the case that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, is the belief that they are something else that's understood by this trans individual, is that a false belief? Yes or no?
It's a false belief because you're not that something else.
Wait, but it is the case that they're something else by what they mean by something else.
Having characteristics doesn't change what you are.
He didn't give a yes/no answer. You gave an answer conditional on something obviously specified in the question.
He just asked me the question and I just answered it to him.
You cut me off. You just gave an answer that was conditional. You just gave an answer that was.
You don't even let me talk.
I have to mute him to be able to talk. It's crazy. He gave an answer that was conditional on something you specified in the question being false. Not an answer.
You literally have to talk over me just to get your
real clear, because so if a trans individual believes they're something else, and by something else they just mean that they have characteristics X, Y, Z.
Yes, it's a false belief.
And it happens to be the case that it is true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z. Is the belief that they are something else, as understood by this trans person, is that belief false?
For the 50th time, yes.
Okay, so you can have a belief that's false and while the belief is true.
But it's not true, that's my point.
Well, I just stipulated in the question that it is the case.
Dude, look, Wolfman, if I have 8 fucking octopus arms and I believe I have 8 fucking octopus arms, is that...
But you don't.
No, but if I do, is the belief true?
You don't.
Don't you understand?
Just like a trans woman doesn't have a womb.
Sorry, don't you? I have to mute you to even talk. Don't you understand that that's not answering the question, right? When you can't, what you're doing is you're giving an answer contingent on changing the question, right? I ask you, if I have fucking, what did I say, 8 octave, if I'm like a 12-headed fucking wolf man, okay? And I believe I'm a 12-headed wolf man. Is that true? Now, the obvious answer to anyone with a fucking brain inside their skull, right? In counting the dead, who I think have better cognitive processing than you, the answer is obviously yes, right? Replying to that by saying it's false because you aren't a 12-headed wolf man is just to change the question. That's an answer to a different question. Right? That's an answer to a question. If I'm not a 12-headed wolf man and I believe I'm a 12-headed wolf man, is that true or false? So how about we're going to try this, okay? Try to answer without changing the question, okay? If I am a 12-headed wolf man and I believe I'm a 12-headed wolf man, is my belief false?
No one has to change the question because.
Well, how are you? I just muted him immediately. It's just insane. Avi, are you running out of patience?
This is out of patience. Yeah, this is just.
You want to just see how many times it takes to get a yes or a no here?
Sure.
Okay, so if I'm a 12-headed wolf man and I believe I'm a 12-headed wolf man, is that belief true? It's a yes or a no. Anything other, if you start some other sentence, you'll just be muted, right? So. If I'm a 12-headed wolf man, and I believe I'm a 12-headed wolf man, is that true? Yes or no?
This is ridiculous.
That's a non-answer. Well, you want to do what? You want to do 5 times, then ban if he can't answer?
5, yeah, 5 and ban.
All right, attempt number 2. If I'm a 12-headed wolfman, and I believe I'm a 12-headed wolfman, is that true? The yes or no question.
Yes.
There we go. You want to continue now, Avi?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You have
so
to
now
literally
if,
make
now
things
my
up
question,
to justify
now my question
transgender
is,
ideology.
Now my question is, so my question now is, if when a trans woman says, I am a woman, and by woman they just mean that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and it happens to be true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, is that belief true? Yes or no?
No, because if their characteristics are not rooted in biology, then no.
Wait, so just to be clear, if their belief that they have characteristics X, Y, Z is true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, the belief that they have characteristics X, Y, Z is false. Is that true? Is that what you're saying?
Talking with a lisp and waving your hands doesn't make
Yes
you a
or
woman.
no? Okay, that's a non-answer. We're going to try one more.
That answers your question.
No, my question is it true? Is it a true belief or is it a false belief? So just to be clear on what the belief is.
That having characteristics of another gender.
If by woman they just mean having characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, is that belief true? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, so just to be clear, if they have characteristics X, Y, Z, the belief that they have characteristics X, Y, Z is not true.
The belief that they are that thing. You're changing the question.
Wait, so just to be clear, if they have characteristics X, Y, Z...
You just changed the question. You're changing...
No.
Yes, you are.
I didn't.
You're changing words.
So I asked you, if someone says they're a woman, and by woman they just mean that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and it's true that they have characteristics X, Y, Z, is that belief true? And you said false.
It doesn't make them a woman.
So by not woman, they just mean... Okay, wait, but they're not... By not woman, when you say they're not a woman, as understood by them, they're just saying their belief that they have is just that they have characteristics X, Y, Z.
Then they're delusional and they don't know what a woman is.
So if that... Wait, hold on. Are you saying that they're like that the false belief is that the definition of woman is not is different than the false belief is that they're defining woman as characteristics X, Y, Z?
So you're saying what makes a woman? No, you're saying, no, I was making fun of you, but you're saying what makes a woman is talking with their hands.
I'm asking you what the false belief is now.
The false belief is that you think you're a woman because you have the characteristics of one.
Okay, but if all they mean by woman is having characteristics X, Y, Z, and they have characteristics X, Y, Z, then is it true that is the belief that they have characteristics X, Y, Z true? Yes or no?
You changed the question. That's not even how you worded it the first time.
Imagine not being able to answer
you
this.
Why can't you answer
this? Yes or no? Okay, so we're gonna try. All right, so look, we're gonna try. Okay. All right, so we're gonna try 5 times.
And then you mute me when I explain it.
If someone, just to be clear, if someone has characteristics X, Y, Z, it's the belief that they have characteristics X, Y, Z. If someone believes they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and they actually have characteristics X, Y, Z, is the belief they have characteristics X, Y, Z true? Yes or no?
If they have characteristics and they believe, I'm fucking
okay, so we're gonna try again. If we're gonna try again, so try
You're
number
literally
2.
Talking over
If someone has character, so it's a yes or no. So
I know if someone has characteristics
out of your mouth,
they believe they have characteristics.
The first word out of your mouth is going to be a yes or a no. So if someone has characteristics X, Y, Z, and they believe they have characteristics X, Y, Z, is that belief true? Yes or no?
Obviously, that's true if they believe they have those characteristics.
Okay. Now, if all someone means...
But it doesn't make them that thing.
If all someone means by woman is having characteristics X, Y, Z...
That doesn't make them a woman.
Their belief is... All their belief is in that case is that they have characteristics X, Y, Z.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. What's the false belief?
The false belief is that they think having those characteristics makes them that thing. It doesn't change it. The fact
But that thing just means, by that thing, they just mean
no,
having
because
those
then you're changing the
characteristics. So
definition
yes,
of a
it does.
woman.
Yes,
Dude,
it does mean
Google the word
having
woman.
those characteristics. Wait, having those if all they mean by
What
that
is a
thing
woman?
is just having, if all they mean by that thing is just having those characteristics, then yes. Then yes,
No,
having
because what
those
is a woman?
characteristics, then having characteristics actually does make someone the thing, and that thing just meaning having those characteristics, because having
There
those
we go. Now we're
characteristics
getting somewhere.
means that
Now
you
you're
have
being
those
honest.
characteristics.
Now
So
you're
that's
being
trivially
honest.
true. So the belief is trivially true.
Well, then that I disagree with, and that's not true.
Wait, so you think having characteristics XYZ means that you don't have characteristics XYZ?
No, having characteristics means you're not that thing, which is what I've been saying since the beginning.
But if that thing just means, that thing just means to them that they have,
it doesn't matter what it means
having
to them.
characteristics
What is the
XYZ.
definition of a woman?
Well, the reason it matters is because you're trying to show a false belief.
What
right?
matters
So
is the definition of
in
a
order
woman.
to show a false, in order to show a false belief, you actually have to pick a belief that they actually have and show it that it's false. Now
What
you
is the
say
definition
that
of a
the false
woman?
belief. If you say it's false, if you say the belief that they have is false, and the belief they have is just they have characteristics X, Y, Z, and they actually do have characteristics X, Y, Z, their belief is true. So what's the false belief that they have?
You didn't say that the characteristics. You said that the characteristics makes them that thing.
Trivially so, if that thing just means having those characteristics.
And
if
that's
that
what
thing
I
just
disagree
means one who has wait, you think that like the definition is false?
Having characteristics doesn't make you those things.
You think like the definition is false? Is that what you're saying?
If I dye my hair blonde every single day, does that make me a blonde?
Wait, can you just answer the question? Do you think the definition is false? Yes or no?
It doesn't make
yes
me
or no. Do you think the definition
what is a woman?
You think that definition is false?
The
yes
definition
or no?
of what?
Oh man,
that thing just means characteristics X, Y, Z. Do you think that definition is false?
Say that again, because your fucking buddy was talking over you and I couldn't hear you.
By that thing, that thing and means having characteristics X, Y, Z. Do you think that definition is false?
The definition that it makes you that thing? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you think that definition is false?
Of course.
What does it mean for a definition to be false?
What is a woman? What's the definition of a woman?
What does it mean for a definition to be false? Can you tell me what it means for a definition to be false?
Yeah, for it to not be the definition. What are you talking about?
Wait, what does it mean? What would it mean?
I notice when you can't argue with what I'm saying or answer my basic questions, you jump to something else.
Tell me.
I don't understand. Avi, you just can't argue against the idea that things other than propositions
you just can't argue.
values.
You can't argue with a woman.
Do you think that things other than propositions? Wait, do you think that things that are non-propositional like have truth values?
Yo, Wolfman, do you think this statement is true? Barbecue.
Barbecue?
Yeah, is that true?
What do you mean, is that true? I like barbecue.
Now, the fact that you said, what does it mean that's true? This is the point we're trying to make, right? Do you think,
I'm trying to...
Do you think this statement has a truth value? Go get me a lasagna. Think that's something that can be true or false, Wolfman?
Well, it can't because it's a command. I'm not commanding you to do something.
Wow, you're actually okay. You're understanding things. Nouns.
Wow,
can't
you're
be
actually
false.
understanding things.
Nouns.
Nobody
can't be
can.
true
Nobody
or
can
false.
understand you when you jump to things.
Now,
so
this is really good, right? Nouns can't be true or false, like barbecue. It's a step in the right direction. And for anyone watching this is just really basic shit. Okay, what we're kind of reckoning with right now is like this is like basic philosophy. Propositions are the things that have truth values. Something like the sky is blue. I'm on fire right now. Avi's a man. These are things that are true or false. Something like a noun or a command is not gonna have a truth value. And this guy thinks definitions have truth values. So we're trying to get him to understand the idea that it would be a category error to say definitions have truth value. Now this is good. He understands nouns don't have truth values. He understands that commands don't have truth values. I want to hear him describe how definitions have truth values.
Woman has a definition. What are you talking about?
That's not an answer on any level at all. That's not addressing what
You're
I'm
talking about definitions now in nouns. Woman is not. You're basically whittling down womanhood to an aesthetic, which is not.
Avi, should we just give up? I'm getting a little bored.
Okay, give up.
Yeah, I'm getting
I'm
bored.
because you have no arguments. So cut
okay.
out of the debate.
Yeah,
There
no,
you go. Bye
it's
bye.
okay, Wolfman.
I know.
I'm
Run
going
away.
to-
Run away.
I'm gonna put you into general, and I'll put out like a notification that there's like a crazy person there. It's like really confused about trans stuff and wants to argue. So I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people who will take you up on it. Avi, any last words before we close off the stream?
I don't know if there's any super chats or not. I guess I should probably check.
You can check real quick. Yeah, I'll put out a command for Wolfman here. It's not going to be a proposition. No, actually, I will make it a proposition. Crazy person who is deeply confused about all things trans in general. Have fun. All right, I'm gonna send you over there, Wolfman. Have fun. We're done with you.
All right. So if there's any like serious questions, maybe we can take one or two of them. But then we'll just call it.
Oh, they're just making fun of the fucking crazy person. I think Avi's wrecking this guy. Avi should have Avi should have 1 million subs. I don't think there's anything. You want to just call it there?
Yeah, we'll just call it.
All right, that was a good stream. Yeah, have a good night, dude.
All right, have a good night. Take care.